You're listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast, coming to you from the Kitchen Studios, located high atop the historic Raleigh building, located in the heart of downtown Raleigh. The NC F&B Podcast takes you behind the scenes of North Carolina's food and beverage industry. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at NCFBPod. This episode is sponsored in part by Food Scene. That's foodseen.com. Providing professional photography, social media management, video production, and website design. That's Food Scene. And now, the sommeliers to the stars, the barbacks in your backyard. It is Max and Matt.
Hello, and thank you for listening to the North Carolina Food and Beverage Podcast. I am your co-host, Max Trujillo.
And I am your co-host, Matthew Weiss. And today in studio, we have a bunch of players from the Players Retreat, Chef Beth Littlejohn, and the owner, the longtime owner and player, Mr. Richard Gusler, et al.
What's up, guys?
Et al.
What's going on?
How's it going?
Great.
The PR, as we like to call it, the Players Retreat, has been the best kept secret in Raleigh or even in North Carolina. I mean, all the greatest chefs that we've ever spoke to always just throw down like so much praise to the PR. So it is an honor to have you both in today. Welcome.
Great to be here.
Thank you. We're excited to be here.
So Beth, we kind of know each other from back in the day, working as hard competitors against each other in the good old North Hills.
Oh, yeah.
While I was at Midtown Grill, you were chefing it up at
Coquette.
And so maybe that's a good place to start. We were talking, Matt and I were discussing that we haven't really talked about the Urban Food Group, and they do a lot in this area, and you worked for them for quite some time.
I did.
Start us out, like how you kind of got connected making some French food over at Coquette for so long.
Well, I was looking for something different. I was living in Durham. I had worked at the Carolina Inn and a couple other places. And I applied for a job actually as a sous chef at Vivace. Staged there, interviewed, and they ended up giving me a sous chef job to start at Coquette. And I was there as a sous chef about 9 months before I became chef de cuisine, maybe a little longer. And so that's kind of how I got in there. And I always laughed. I never in a million years thought I'd be the chef at a French restaurant.
Well, so for those that don't know, Coquette is a French bistro, and Vivace, who is also owned by Urban Food Group, is an Italian restaurant. So was that where you thought you were going? Were you big into Italian food?
No. I mean, I was classically trained. I went to CIA, Culinary Institute of America. I'm not a spy. I feel like I need to just say that every time I say CIA.
Yeah.
But I always liked Italian food. I liked Italy, but I'd never really picked one genre or the other. I just like to cook food. I have a hard time picking a genre that I like. People always ask, what's your favorite dish? What do you like to cook?
Yeah. So
I like to cook everything.
That's the worst question anybody ever asked a chef. What's your favorite dish to cook?
That off my notes.
Yeah.
I had a guest demand that I tell him what I would cook if I could cook for 6 people right now. A six course meal right now. What would I cook?
Well,
What's
that's
cool?
a little bit
And I was
better. That's a little bit better of a question because, like, there's some parameters and specificity to it versus,
the
hey, what's your favorite
people.
dish ever to cook? Yeah, the number of people, the timing. You could go on with seasonal.
It was just random, but I really kind of came into my own as a chef at Coquette, and I learned a lot from Ian, who was the executive chef for the company.
Yes.
And he was a great guy to work for. He was a chef there when I started. When I was a sous chef for a period of time. So that's kind of how I got in there. And
I really, besides your culinary background, I want to talk about your surname. Like, is this from Robin Hood of Locksley that I had to fight somebody, you and your family, to get over the creek, or what?
Tell them my whole name.
Whole name.
My whole name is Beth Rising Fawn Littlejohn.
Oh, okay. Some Native American.
How?
Rising
How,
Fawn?
brother? Fawn, like
fawn.
a baby
Yeah.
deer, yes.
My name's Dakota Hawk. Because I'm a dad in the Y-Guides tribe, so that's
Dakota Hawk.
Yeah, but
Okay, you should like if you do other podcasts, you should be like that should be your radio name.
it might be the new production company.
I think
name.
you should
It's pretty
throw that
sweet.
out there.
Yeah. Well, my brother has some Native American. We have different fathers, but he is very Native American, and so his real name from his tribe is Little Hawk. And so I thought, well, if I'm going to make a name up, I should just use part of my brother's name because it's kind of like our surname.
Right.
And Dakota in the Arapaho Nation means friend to all. So,
Very
That's
fitting.
lovely.
yes. But now I want to know about this.
Yeah, so Rising Fawn Littlejohn.
Well, I have a weird background, but my family, one side of my family, we practiced Native traditions my whole life. My father's side.
But you were raised in Durham, right?
Well, I went to school in Durham,
Okay.
but we lived out in the cut north of Hillsboro, a little tiny town called Prospect Hill.
Okay.
Yeah, never even heard of it.
There's like a gas station and post office, and that's it.
So Prospect Hill, you grew up part Native American culture and
Yeah,
part...
we did ceremony and stuff. Oh, and then my mom's Jewish.
There you go.
There you go.
I say that I'm a Jewickie. I actually had a shirt made that says Jewickie, and there's a yarmulke over the J with some feathers on it, and then
That's awesome.
Pretty amazing.
it's pretty epic.
So let's talk about that for a second. But raising... So your dad, Littlejohn is his surname.
Yes.
And then... How did that affect your culinary upbringing? Like, was there Native American dishes fused with Jewish dishes? I mean, this could make for a fascinating restaurant. Like matzo
I
ball
don't think there's
soup
enough.
topped with, I don't know, like
Maize?
spelt
Maize,
bird
perhaps?
eggs or something. Maize? Yo, maize.
That's like the
Maize.
depth of all of our Native American food
maize.
background. Maize.
This week's specials.
Oh, yeah, no.
I like it.
See, here's the thing. I've had quote-unquote Native American food that was like just using indigenous ingredients and stuff. It was terrible.
Yeah.
There's not a big, like, culinary scene in the Native American world. They're just trying to stay alive, out there.
Which is so sad because Mexicans are so closely connected and their food culture is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's true.
So maybe we'll just
I
stick
think
with
it's been
Mexican
lost.
food.
I think it's been lost a little bit, probably, from whatever it was.
Yeah, why? What happened?
Yeah.
I think it's called genocide.
Yeah.
Perhaps it was that. Of course, I have a Jewish mother, so the Jewish food was important. But my mom worked a lot. She worked a lot and was a very hard worker. I'm hitting things down here.
Break something in the studio?
Yeah, I think I just broke something.
You didn't think that you were going to come in and talk about your family or religious background
I did
today,
not.
did you?
I did not.
We get
but
into it all
that's
here on
cool.
the
I'm
North
down.
Carolina
I mean,
Food and
I'm
Beverage
down.
Podcast.
I'm cool.
Well, let's get a little background over at Gus over here.
Yeah.
Kind of frame some reference over here. So, Gus. Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say before, we should preface this by the player retreat has started in 1951.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot of years behind that.
I haven't been there that
A
long.
lot.
Oh.
Neither have I.
Yeah.
Yeah, only 40 of those years. No, but Gus, when did you pick it up?
We bought it November 25th, 2005.
Oh, okay.
It was a week away from closing.
But you had worked there since 1971, right?
No. I cooked there in 1971.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
So,
there's some history, and ultimately you were met with a good opportunity, and you jumped on it.
I didn't want to. It was reluctant. I was very reluctant to do it. It was basically the guy called me up, and I had represented restaurants as a lawyer since '84, so I'd done a lot of work. I kind of did that part, and I cooked at like 5 different restaurants through college to pay my way through college. So
you were going to NC State,
so
right?
I know how to cook a little bit, not like she can, but I
He's good.
knew the legal side of restaurants, but I never ran one. So I'm practicing law full time. He calls me up and says, new landlord bought the building. He raised my rent from $1,800 a month to $5,000. I can't do this anymore. I'm losing my ass. And some people want to buy it, but they just want the name. They're going to bastardize it. And he said, I'd rather close it than let somebody fuck the whole thing up. The image. You love the place. I know you love the place, and I know you will keep it the Players Retreat the way it's supposed to be. And I went, I'm not buying a restaurant. He said, you hadn't heard the deal yet. And he told me the deal. And I said, why the fuck are you doing this to me?
It was a deal you couldn't say no to.
Well, and I'll tell you the deal. He basically said, give me the entire place for $75,000, $1,000 down at 6%, no personal guarantees. If I got at 6 months I want to leave, I'll walk away. That was it.
And what does that come with? You buy the lease and you buy all the inventory.
I bought the lease, the mark, Players Retreat mark, name, everything in the building.
Yeah,
and that's it.
The ovens, the plates,
The goodwill, and all the absolutely disgusting equipment, cooking equipment that was left in there. It was all tied together with baling wire. So I had one day to make a decision, no due diligence, just yes or no.
And did you have even a moment to talk to the lady, the wife, and say?
I told her, and she loves the PR just like I did, and I do. And so she said, do it. And I did it.
Well, we're glad that you did,
Yeah.
because that would have been horrible if it just, turned
Yeah.
over, or it just turned into like a TGI Fridays, or something. Did you get any good scotch at the time, or was that all you're doing?
People tend to forget that when we purchased it, up until we bought it, the PR was only open Monday through Saturday. It was interesting, a sports bar that was not open for NFL football on Sunday, especially since it was owned by a NFL football player. So it basically was closed on Sunday. It had beer and two kinds of wine, white Zinfandel,
yes,
and Chardonnay that cost $1.99 a bottle.
Wow.
So there was
Less
no
than
liquor.
$2
Now,
shop.
a little bit of history. When ABC mixed beverage license came into effect back, I'm not sure what year that was, Bernie bought the first mixed beverage license. He was standing there and bought it, license number 1.
Really?
The first one ever. And never put any liquor into the place. He just wanted the license. So he bought it and then never renewed it. And never bought a single bottle of whiskey and put it into place.
Wow.
We were the first ones to do that.
Yeah, and that you did. The Scotch collection that you have there is somewhat infamous. You have everything I've seen. I mean, from the outside looking in, you wouldn't expect this neighborhood bar, the sports bar, to have quite the extensive. Matt, have you ever seen all the scotches?
Well, I mean, I know that it's if not, it was at one time the single largest collection of single malt whiskeys in the state.
There are larger collections of whiskey, EY and Y, in town, but we don't have that many people who drink bourbon. We've got a decent selection of bourbon, but we have 138 single malt scotches.
Right.
We only have one blended scotch in the bar.
And that is?
Doers, and that's for our in-house criminal defense lawyer, Duncan McMillan.
You're welcome, Duncan.
Who's represented pretty much everybody that's worked at the Players Retreat at some level for some kind of problems they had over the last 40 years. So
we got to get him in here for a podcast.
Yeah, seriously, that would be fascinating.
Well, attorney-client
I was about to say, it's going to be pretty quiet, that attorney-client
He couldn't tell you
privilege.
anything.
But that also connects then what you had been doing for such a long time. You're an attorney yourself.
Correct.
You said before we got on the mics, we're here in the Raleigh building at the Kitchen Studios where we record, that you were once in this building. You had an office on the 10th floor, is that right?
10th floor. We moved in here, I think it was probably in the fall of '84.
Okay.
And we moved in my law practice with 2 other lawyers, and also my concert company, Promotion Concerts, which we started in 1982.
Yeah.
Was upstairs as well. I had the staff of that on the same floor with us.
So at that time, only going to restaurants was really your interest. There was no idea of, I'm going to run a place, or I'm going to cook at a place. I mean, that was all behind you at that point.
No. The only thing I did was I helped them with setting up corporations, getting liquor license, and then represented anyone who got caught selling underage or whatever.
Yeah. There's a lot of law in this building that does that. There's a lot of DUI lawyers. There's a lot of liquor problems happening in this building.
But what you're saying is you were helping restaurants who got caught selling to underage.
Correct.
Or,
bars. I mean, my biggest client was probably the brewery down on Hillsborough Street. Everyone that ever worked there got sold underage. I mean, it was just the way it was. But
so college bar.
I should have put an office.
That's like when the ALE needs to make their quotas at the end of the month, they just head down to the brewery. Like, we know we're going to get 6 or 7 here tonight.
It's not there anymore, unfortunately, but it was a great place.
Right. So you went to NC State, right?
Correct.
For those that are listening either outside of the Triangle area or outside of the state, the Players Retreat is right basically across the street from the campus of NC State. And just to give some more perspective, this place, it has actually, I don't know if we've talked about it much on the show, but as Max alluded to, chefs and all the industry people know this place as a great spot to go, and that's their favorite place to eat. So when industry talks about it as their favorite place to eat, it is the true insider place. But also the other thing is, if you walk in there, if you walk outside, you probably wouldn't think that much of it. It's kind of looks like your old kind of not watering hole, but like your old man's bar, let's say. And you wouldn't think like the food would be eclectic and there would be serious menu and then the Scotch program and the wine program all together.
You really know how to sell it, Matt.
Well, am I wrong? I mean, I'm not the first one to say that.
It's deceiving on its image, I think.
It's the great thing about it is multiple generations have grown up in that place. Mm-hmm. And one thing that's awesome is to see people come in there that are students at NC State now who come in and go through and look at, say, oh, my father played in the PR golf tournament in 1974. Let's go find a picture. Oh, there he is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's history there.
It's come in, and it's a great place. It's got a lot of tradition. For a long time, we were considered a dive bar, and I think we probably were.
That's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
Don't call it a dive bar.
Don't call it a dive bar anymore. We won an award last year from a TV station for best dive bar in a triangle, and I refused to go pick it up. We are not a dive bar anymore. But the great thing about the place is that, if you go back and look into 51 when it opened up, the Players Retreat was run by Bernie. Bernie was and Mickey, and Bernie was a pro football player, went to Wake Forest. But he was in the North. He brought in things. No one had ever heard of a sub sandwich. Whatever. They just didn't do it. There was no place around here to get a submarine sandwich. And he brought it in and started that. I mean, it was one of the first places. And the thing about the bar it was inclusive when no one else was. If you went in there in the 50s and the 60s, you would see straight, gay, interracial couples in the only place in town you would ever see that.
Yeah.
And everybody got along. There was never any issue. No one was turned away, and there was never anyone who walked in and felt like they were being discriminated against. So it's got a long tradition of being way ahead of the curve on those kinds of things. But it was a dive bar.
Yeah, sure. And that's what I was alluding to, is that perceptively it could be seen that to the outsider, but once you walk in, that it's much more than that.
Yeah.
It's the fact or the proof of quality is so important, and that's where, I mean, when you came in, you cleaned it up. When you came in, you cleaned it up. You started putting it on the right track, and the menu was important to you to just say, hey, we're not just going to do, if we're going to do a burger, we're going to do the best burger. And you started putting a conscious decision to make really quality food, and so much so to go out and get Beth Littlejohn to be your chef. I mean, she has been well respected for years, especially at a place making, pretty fancy French cuisine, and it's like, Beth Littlejohn. When I heard the story that you left to go to the PR, I was like, wait, what?
That's what a lot of people said.
When I was the last one,
I get it.
Interviewer, and I sat down outside the PR and looked at her. I said, "You're going to leave the best French restaurant in Raleigh to come to the Players Retreat."
By the way,
I looked at her and said, "Are you fucking crazy?"
He did.
I mean, why would you do that?
that?
And I mean, I don't know if she's changed her mind or not, but we're sure glad she's there.
I'm just saying. I was just saying. When you just said that statement, Serge Falco's Vignette, just like,
this is not good.
No, and Jeff Sizer was probably also like, what?
He's speaking of Royale and, of course, of Saint Jacques, who are also pretty damn good French restaurants.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
But the funny part, and I just got to get into this one dinner that we just had recently, because this will just help paint the picture for the audience. A good friend of ours, Eric Surface, he won, or he purchased. Win. He had to throw some money down, but he was able to get a dinner that he purchased for charity and was able to put it together. And I was invited, which was great.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Do you want to have a multi-course French dinner at the Players Retreat?" And I went, "What?" Yes, that sounds awesome. It was a who's who of people at the table. We'll keep it anonymous. But some of the people that were sitting there, this guy, Gus, it was the first time I met you, and I was like, oh my God. And you were filling us with the greatest stories all night long. Again, we'll keep those off the table. But amazing stories. But then Beth is just dropping it down with crazy French food. Eric went so far as he had this thing that he had to have. Explain this dish that he made you search high and low for.
Well, so Eric, with these dinners, when people want to do these dinners at PR, because anybody can do it, really. If they want to do it, they just come to me and they talk to me about what kind of menu they want, because I will cook French food. I cook French food well, I'm assuming. But I also cook, all sorts of different things. But Eric said, well, do French, because that's, your wheelhouse, I guess. So I sent him a menu, and then he wanted to have, in London at a restaurant, a French restaurant, he had duck consommé with 100-year-old Madeira.
Yes.
And warm inside the consommé.
Yeah.
Now, I love making consommé. It's actually one of my favorite things to do. I know that might be weird, but I think it's a really cool process. So I was like, sure, we can add that course. And then we had to try and find the Madeira, which we waited till last minute to kind of do.
I got the text from him too. He's like, do you know anywhere I can get 100-year-old Madeira? No.
Literally like the day of, we're like, where the hell can we get
I
this
would have
Madeira?
called Max Cast.
Well,
Broadband selections.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just going to say I saved the day because I, through working at PR and doing things like Southern Foodways Alliance, I became friends with Stephen Green from the Umstead Hotel.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's a fancy hotel. They probably have some Madeira on hand. And they did. And
50-year-old.
50-year-old.
it was only 50.
I mean, come on.
Or it might have been
Jeez.
60.
Probably,
It's a little
I'm sure
pedestrian,
Eric really
but
tasted
it didn't.
the difference.
It was 60. It was 60.
I think it was
over there.
60.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. We served 60-year-old Madeira, and it was delicious with the consommé. It was like equal. It wasn't quite equal parts, but it was close.
Pretty close, yeah.
I mean, traditionally you do put Madeira or Calvados or something similar on top of consommé. It's not an unusual garnish because it enhances the flavors. But that was how that happened.
I wasn't particularly crazy about it, but it was.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was. I thought
the
it was
other
pretty
side
amazing.
of it was
really
it was an
delicious.
adventure.
And it was a flavor that I had yet to
Yeah.
have before.
It's
Yeah.
very
It was-
different. It's got because you got that very fruit forward, like figgy sort of Madeira, and then this.
Yeah, I just want to,
Rich.
for those listening, Madeira is similar to a sherry or a port wine. It's from an island off the coast of Portugal, and it's a cooked wine is their signature. And yeah, so it has exactly a lot of those figgy, sweet, date nutty flavors, oxidation.
And,
all
and
that.
with age, it gets more pronounced, right? I mean, it gets richer. So
Yeah, so it was poured all in glasses for us just to try it singularly. And we're like, well, that's delicious. It's amazing. And then the consommé came in and
in
just
that coffee carafe.
and we poured it in a coffee carafe. Just this amazing
In a
consommé
wine glass.
In a wine glass. And that's how our course was like, we're just sipping it like a wine.
Using it as a gravy and sipping it, kind of?
No, we just-
You were sipping the soup out of the wine glass with the Madeira
Oh,
mixed in.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
It was definitely something I had never had before. And it was really cool. It was different. But, I mean, that was just one of, how many courses did you do? Like 7, 8?
Well, he added that course, and then he also wanted. I asked him if he wanted dessert or cheese, and he was like, "Well, I kind of want both," so we did both. So it was like 7 courses or 8 courses.
Yeah, he was a good guy. But, I mean, still, that was amazing. And then with that, Gus, you were just telling us the history, and we got to get into this. So you also have a lot of business in Tennessee. And at the time, I had just come back from Tennessee to record a new project that, at this point now, when the show is released, will be available. It's called Something Else About Food. It's with our friend Candace Townsend. She's the host. But we went out and we were talking to Sean Brock and Benton's Bacon and Blackberry Farms, Barefoot Farmer, all these great guys. But as we were there, we discussed that you spend pretty much half your time in Nashville.
I'm back and forth as much as I possibly can get out there.
You're a music man.
Correct. I do basically entertainment, law, and intellectual property.
Yeah. And there's some bands that maybe you probably have heard of that you represent. Can we talk about that?
Sure.
I can bring up. Can I sing one of the songs?
Oh, please sing one.
Please don't.
Let her cry.
Kill the mic.
Let her
Kill the
fall
mic.
down like rain. Let her. That's right. Hootie and the Blowfish.
Yep.
You brought him back.
Well, we hadn't been in the studio together in 13 years.
Yeah.
And between managers, I was actually doing management and legal work for them. And I got them back in the studio to re-record some of the hits from the first album so that we can keep all the money from the licensing
I love
instead of
that
giving
idea.
Warner Brothers any of it. So in the process, and part of that was to get them in the studio to see, knowing that the 25th anniversary of Cracked Review was coming up, and I wanted to get them in, see if they could actually work in the studio together. And it was just like going back to 1993 when we recorded Cracked Review. They just hit it off. And at that point, I knew now we can do a new album and now we can do a new tour. So
Yeah. So
started working.
You said it quickly, but that bears repeating. Warner Brothers or just any big studio owns the rights to songs, and what's been coming
to the master recording
to the
of
master
the song.
recording, the physical, actual recording of that
song.
actual song.
Correct.
And so a lot of savvy people have been doing this kind of more recently that they'll just re-record the song under their own license, and if they're good enough and their chops are still the same, they sound pretty much like the original. So then at that point, if you want to buy the new version, all that money goes directly to the band and not to all the fat cats up in the record studios. So I know Soundgarden did that right before Chris Cornell passed on, which is great. So anyone that wants to pay tribute, go buy the new stuff that Soundgarden released, and that goes to the band and his family. But that's really cool that you were able to do that.
Where you're hearing the differences and where the real money is not selling songs anymore. So no one buys them; they just steal them on the internet or stream them. But the money is for licensing, for TV shows, commercials, and things like that. And we were able to record.
I don't have to pay for just singing that part of the song.
You'll get the bill tomorrow, or rather, maybe the lawsuit for the detrimental. Yeah.
I could argue it didn't sound anything like it.
It didn't. That's for sure. You sounded like the Ted from the
movies with Steph MacFarlane.
That's what.
That's a funny scene.
AIOU, whatever. So anyway, but the real thing is for licensing, and so we were on This Is Us, whatever. They used a song on there, and we were able to get them to use the new version. But what we did was we got the original producer who did the cracked review. We had all the same amplifiers, guitars, everything, and we went back in. And the idea was, if you're going to do this, you've got to make it sound exactly like the original version.
Yeah.
To get people to use it instead of the one. So if we've got a case where we're licensing it for $100,000 for the master use, normally if they use the original, we get $50,000 and the record label keeps $50,000. But now we get the whole $100,000.
Wow!
So it works out very well for the band, and so we were able to go in and re-record it, and we recouped that within 6 months, and we actually at this point have generated almost 4 times in a year what it cost us to do the re-records.
So it was worth it.
It was worth every penny.
I bet.
Were you in the sessions? Were you there? And did you give Darius heck when he was singing? You're like, come on, man, it didn't sound like that.
Now I'll tell you what the problem was. I was sitting in the studio when Darius started doing his tracks for the new versions, and the producer Don Gaiman turned him around to me and says, "We got a problem." I said, "What that?" He says, "He is so much a better singer now than he was in 1994 that I've got to tweak down his voice."
It's stronger, and he's hitting it.
His voice now is just butter, man. It's just unbelievable.
He does have a silky voice.
I just saw him the show, and when were they here with Lady?
Back in September.
In September, he does have a beautiful voice. It was very
You should hear him sing Sinatra. Oh my God!
I could see it.
Why don't you get him to do a version of the NC F&B theme song? Our theme song. Let's make that happen.
I was going to say once we get our 10,000th subscriber, he might have to represent us. Have you ever represented podcasters before?
No.
It's entertainment.
There you go.
That's true.
I imagine there'd be a lot of lawsuits along the way.
Yeah, it'd be fun for you, right?
Sounds good. Here's my card.
Yeah, put it on the table. But in seriousness, you are an extremely busy man. I mean, with all the music stuff, I'm sure Max could talk to you about for days, but we are trying to keep these a little bit more concise. And getting back to food and beverage, you do most of the beverage for the Players Retreat. Whenever I was trying to get my wines in there, they would be like, "Oh, you got to talk to Gus."
I got away from that for a while, but I'm back now. And Michael Rapold, our GM, and I work together on the wine list.
Okay.
But I'm the Scotch guy.
You're the Scotch guy. And you also have 100 beers on tap too, right?
20.
Not quite
100.
120, same difference.
It's pretty close.
It's a fifth.
Scotch just randomly shows up at PR all the time. We'll be like, oh, I guess Scotch got some more
We're up to
Scotch.
138 single malt Scotches now, I believe.
Okay, awesome.
We have
That's
an
a lot.
antique whiskey license, so my wife and I go to Scotland to August every year, and I go into the distilleries, and I've got a couple of collectors over there to find antique spirits, which means it had to be bottled over 20 years ago.
Okay, that's the Crunkleton bill, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah.
Great guy.
I love Gary.
He's a handsome fella.
Handsome
Just
fella,
stay
good
away from his
haircut.
Vue Carrés. He'll crush you with one. But,
You were handing those out at that dinner.
oh, jeez.
That was Gary's fault.
That was
because
Gary's
he had
fault.
been inspired.
He's turned me
Yes.
on to those things, and I have to have one.
That's my favorite cocktail. My favorite
Vue
stirred
Carré, yeah.
cocktail. Vue Carré. It's equal parts.
It's strong.
Cognac, rum, cognac, rye, Benedictine, and sweet vermouth. Maybe throw a little bitters in there if you like.
Yeah. So talk to me about that for a sec. So yeah, if anything has been aged over 20 years, what are the parameters of the Concord bill?
Under that bill,
for your
you can bring back any whiskey or alcohol, whatever, that was bottled over 20 years
that
ago.
was bottled over 20 years ago and sell it at your establishment
Yes.
as and so you obviously the guest of you is paying taxes on that, but you don't have to pay ABC taxes, or you still have to pay ABC taxes on purchasing that.
It's a great deal because I buy the bottle. I don't have to tell them what I pay for it, and I basically go over. I give them all the provenance on it so they can make sure that it's 20 year was bottled over 20 years, and then I pay. It was something like $9-10. And
Yeah, you have
I
to
sell it to them basically for
Yeah.
$1, and they sell it back to me for $9 or whatever. So it's something like
Yeah.
that. But it's pretty.
I see.
It's a really good deal. The only problem is that when you're buying an antique whiskey that's over 20 years, it may be worthless.
Okay.
And my collectors over there they told me, just calculate whatever you're paying for one bottle. If you keep buying it, it's going to cost you double what you're paying because half of the ones you buy when you get it back and you open it's not going to be worth drinking. So that's the only problem. And so you wind up paying £400 for a 5-year-old single malt whiskey that was bottled 20 years ago, and it may be completely disgusting when you get it back over here.
Because of what?
If it wasn't stored properly.
Yeah, incorrectly storage.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for liquor, I mean, especially
will
at
go
that
bad.
high proof, it should be.
They'll go bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. A good friend of mine does a lot of that antique stuff. I'm sure you guys probably will talk about that offline, but he's a collector and a connector of antique liquors. Ooh. He's a good guy to know. Your eyes just lit up. Yeah, I'll hook you up.
Yeah. Well, I want to know that, you took over in 2005 as owner, and so Beth, you came on it in 2015.
Yeah.
So in all that time, though, not only have you been able to maintain the culture, but you've been able to find fill this very important niche in the Raleigh community. Do you have any tips, secrets, different things that you do that you've been able to maintain the culture?
I think the one thing that I hope that she appreciates it, she can cook whatever she wants.
Nobody's looking over her shoulder.
If you're in a corporate restaurant, I mean, you're kind of restricted. You can do once in a while some things, but my attitude is throw it out there. I don't care what you on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. She does specials every week, and we started that with Jean-Paul Fontaine, who was the chef before her, who used to have Bistro 607 and Evu, and we just started doing that, and it gives her some freedom to
be creative.
And also I think it's very important, even though we were a dive bar, that we be part of the community of culinary, of restaurants. And, we've been very fortunate that part of what you're saying earlier, we've got so many James Beard chefs in there. I mean, Sean Brock one night came up to me and said, "You realize I've never been in Raleigh. I didn't end the night at the PR." So, I mean, we get a lot of that, and we've had a lot of help out of certainly a lot of chefs, people that ran restaurants that I worked for when I was a lawyer. But we've been able to find our way in, and Beth's quality of cooking has helped a lot. That we're part of that community now with Ashley and Jason Smith and Cheedy and all these people, and all these people. Yeah. And we're part of that. I mean, she's trained. This is the third year in a row you've cooked at the Triangle Wine Experience. She goes to the. This
is the fourth year.
Fourth year in a row. She goes to the SFA symposium in Oxford every year. I just got back from the SFA's Taste of the South at Blackberry Farms, and my wife and I this past weekend, and we just booked for next year, and she's going to that as well. So we try to be part of that giving back and part of the whole culture that, to be honest, I don't think didn't exist years ago. And I will say it. I give Ashley Christensen a lot of credit for creating the entire environment, because when I was representing all those restaurants over the last 20 years before I got in the restaurant business, there was no everybody. It was us and them. That's the way it was.
Right.
And that I don't think that changed until Ashley came along. And I
Oh,
think
she
she changed
by
the
far is the
entire
catalyst of
culture.
this
And
industry.
a lot of people have benefited from that would have gone hungry otherwise and stuff because of that culture she's developed. She calls now and everybody comes together. And it's just the restaurant scene here, put aside the great food and how the people running the restaurants, it's a great community that are very tight, and she's the reason for that.
Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, working at PR has given me a lot of opportunities with Ashley and James Beard Foundation. I did that little conference thing about change for that, and it's just been a really great experience to do that. I think what has made it maintain is Gus really cares a lot about our guests and their needs, and he wants people to be able to come in here and get the burger that they got in 1970 or whatever, and it brings back that memory. Because for me, and the reason I'm a chef and the reason I love food is because I love the connection with memories, and that's what you get at PR. You know, those people, I can't tell you how many times people come in and they say, oh, my dad brought me here when I was a little kid, and I love bringing my kids here. And, you know, you just get this huge variety of people that come in, and that's because we maintain this consistent menu that allows people to come back and have those memories with their families. So.
Yeah, it's like a built-in progression where, if, like you said, if you were a university student old enough to drink, or actually just old enough to have a burger, you come in, and then later, you're still coming in if you live in the area or visiting, and then you're bringing your kids there. So it just progresses unto itself.
Well, the greatest thing to me is seeing all the kids that are in there. I mean, this place used to be a dive bar, clearly, but you go in there now, and you go in on Sunday at brunch. There may be 25 or 30 kids. This 2 feet high, running around all over the place.
I bet.
And we give out. We always keep.
And that's just the staff.
That's the staff. Yeah. And we give them. We give all these
little
kids free T-shirts. So future drink.
I gotta bring my boy
when
there.
When we see the little
He's
ones,
a T-shirt.
We'll run up and grab a T-shirt, and we're creating new guests.
Exactly.
Right away,
You get them while they're young.
But it's just
we got to rope them in quickly.
I'm Scotch Irish and a little German, but if you go, it goes back to if you go to Ireland and Scotland, the neighborhood pubs.
Right.
They're not just a bar. I mean, it's a family place.
Yeah, it's a gathering.
And I think we're the closest thing to that you can find anywhere. It's very similar to the kind of place in a small town where the community where everybody goes on Sunday afternoon after church and whatever.
It's very
It takes their
cheers-ish.
kids and drink beer and
Center of the community. Yeah.
But a little more upscale. I will say one quick thing. Back during the great George W. Bush Depression in 2008, during that period of time, a lot of people went to really nice restaurants, had to cut back. I mean, wealthy people cut back. And doing that, one of the things that struck me the most, I walked in one day and there's two couples sitting in the back room, very nicely dressed, obviously wealthy, sitting there eating Bernie burgers and drinking a bottle of Silver Oak wine, which I thought was kind of cool. I went, maybe we got something here.
Yeah.
They get it.
So
Well, and I want to talk to you, Beth, about and Gus, you alluded to it earlier about your specials, and I think that's what puts the stamp, the Littlejohn stamp, as to what's happening right now. And I know chefs in general, like when I was working with Scott James at Midtown, he had the menu. It was like, this is what we're doing, 12 entrees, whatever. But it was really about the specials. It was like, that's where his creativity could just flow. So what's happening right now? Where are you at creatively? What are you digging on? What kind of specials would we kind of to know right now? What's your favorite thing to cook? Just kidding.
We're talking about how cliche that question is for chefs.
But
It's just impossible.
what's on your menu board like right now? What's going on?
Yeah. So the sandwich and burger specials I do every week, that was something we added on. I don't think John Paul did that.
No, he didn't.
That has its own following in and of itself. The Korean burger, the honey sriracha, the catfish tacos. Those are some of the three favorite specials that I do that people like literally follow. They're like, "Have you done the Korean burger? When are you doing the Korean burger?"
I'm getting hungry.
But we don't put them on the menu because then it's not as special, right? Because then you can get it all the time, and then it's like, what's the deal? I don't know. I incorporate all sorts of things. So, like, I feel like last week was a little French in inspiration. I did braised lamb shank with potato gratin and things like that. Similar, actually, to the one I did at your event. Yeah. And this week, I'm doing a local beef burger. We do that a few times a year where we pair with this local farm in the mountains called Shipley Beef. We get our custom blend and we grind it in-house still like we do our normal burgers. And so we do stuff like that. After Gus's trip to Blackberry, he was inspired and got us some Benton's ham. And we're going to do some crispy Brussels sprouts with some crisp country ham and Benton's country ham.
You know,
and
Benton's bacon is being baked or cooked when the whole house just is smoky.
Yeah, and then sorghum syrup from
Muddy Pond
sorghum. We're going to drizzle on those. But, I do all sorts of things. I go to the farmer's market a lot. There's not a ton right now because it's so freaking cold outside. Yeah. But I still even go and, like, get apples or greens or whatever. And I go there usually once or twice a week to kind of use that as inspiration. That's kind of how I like to cook. I don't like to kind of plan ahead something. I like to be inspired in the moment and whatever kind of sounds good to me that week or what I'm, craving or what I think people like or, sometimes it's heavily Asian influence. I did some hoisin glazed pork belly last week. I do fried rice periodically that people really like. But then at the same time, like I said, then there's the French stuff, Italian. I don't know. Is
there ever, talking about community, is there ever talks about, like, maybe you getting into Bavana and cooking or like the chefs from over there getting behind the kitchen at players, like do collaboratives? Yeah.
I don't
kitchen takeovers.
I don't really know how to cook Asian food. I just cook the flavors that I like and make it up. So they would probably hate me because they'd be like, you can't do that. That's just not right. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, like your Korean burger somewhere, or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never really thought about that, but I certainly think it could be cool. I think it's always interesting and fun to collaborate with other chefs. I love doing the events and things like Triangle Wine Experience, and I do the Grand Gala.
What are you making?
I'm doing fried oysters.
Ooh.
That sounds good.
I'll grab one of those.
I've never done something like that at an event where I'm frying something to order, so I'm a little bit nervous because I usually try and make it easy for myself. But
you're
it's a lot of people.
Yourself.
It's like 500 people, so
yeah.
But I'm bringing 2 helpers, so that should cover it.
Is Gus one of them?
No, he's
Come
not.
On, Gus.
So I will be cooking that day for 100 people coming to my house the next night for a Super Bowl party. So
that's right.
He makes the really good gumbo, and so that's what he's making. I'm going to prep it for him, which he doesn't. He does the prep sometimes himself, but this time I'm going to help him out.
I've got to be
he's
in
out of town.
Nashville all week, so I needed some help.
Nice.
True Renaissance man over here.
Yeah. Well, this has been great having you all in. Now I'm so hungry.
Seriously.
Sorry.
Everybody else is probably starving while they're listening to this, too.
One more question.
Yeah.
And you guys can both answer this, but we've gotten away from this. We used to answer this. We used to ask this question to everybody on the show. But because so many of our top chefs have said that the Players Retreat is their favorite place to eat, where are your guys' favorite places to eat when you're not eating at Players Retreat?
Gus?
God, this is really hard because it's what kind of food are you talking about?
I don't know, and it's winter now, so give us like where would we find the Gusler on a weekday night?
Lunch, if I'm not going to be eating at the PR or whatever at home, I'm usually going to eat a hot dog at either Roast Grill or Clues. That's my
Roast
lunch.
Grill or Clues. Okay,
They're 2 totally different kind of hot dogs.
Yeah,
but I love them both. They're both terrific. At dinner, I find that when we're usually at the PR or on Sunday, my wife and I, we cook. We stay home and cook. We don't go out on Sunday night. I cook. She doesn't cook. But going out, I love pools. I love Jay Betsky's. Oh, my God. I love 18th Seaboard. Mm-hmm. And then, my other, Garland, Bravana, and Beatamanda, and Stanberry. I love, those are...
Can't go wrong with any of those.
That's pretty much the list that we go to that we most of the time.
Yeah. A lot of those are on my list. I also, because I lived in Durham for such a long time, a lot of Durham places. Pretty much anything Matt Kelly, Pizzeria Toro, Emma Sushi, Kokayu, Namin. Have you guys been there?
No.
There?
I can never. I've been there like 5 times now, and I never say it right. I always like Kokayu Namin.
Kokayu Nami. Where is that?
It's in Durham.
Like near
It was a
Southland,
food truck
sort of?
near South
South
Point.
Point?
Southland. I don't know what I'm
Southland.
talking about.
Yeah, they do banh mi's. They're killer. They're like unbelievable. I also love So Cafe. They've got great Korean fried chicken, but Stanberry is a big favorite. Oakwood Pizza Box. Kebab and curry is very good.
Yeah. Anthony of Oakwood Pizza Box will be on the show shortly.
Whoop whoop.
Soon.
Killer.
He did say it was going to be the least listened to show of all time.
Well, we're not going to talk about pizza. We're just going to talk about Jordans.
Yeah, well, then it probably will be the least
That's
listened to show of all time. This has been great. Hey, for anyone that actually got this far into the episode, it means that you really liked what you were listening to, and you're committed, and you have attention, like you don't have ADD. So continue to listen to the show, subscribe to the show, tell your friends about it. Let's expand this army. Let's expand this pirate ship, however you want to call it. But click the subscribe button and take your friend's phone and click subscribe on their phone without them knowing, so that they can be pleasantly surprised on Thursday mornings when we release new episodes, because they always happen every Thursday. And there's some great shows coming up.
Yeah, and we'll give Richard some more work to do, because once we hit 10,000, he's agreed to take us on as a client. 10,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, listen to Max. Go to the Players Retreat, and I think as you've heard, you will eat and drink extremely merrily.
Thanks for listening to the NC F&B podcast. And if you've stuck with us this long, review us on iTunes, and remember, 5 stars are encouraged.